guess what I don't want? Morrissey. Infamous frontman of the Smiths. Legendary singer-songwriter. I'm not a dog on a train, so put me down like one. Now, let's cut straight. I do not like this album, for personal reasons alone. Now, don't take that out of context, doomers. This is coming from a guy who loves literally every single Smiths album, except for Strangeways, kind of, and thinks that Viva Hate and Your Arsenal were pretty fantastic too. There has never been a man like Maz who can both make me love someone and hate someone equally at the same time before. The fact that he can represent these feelings that we all feel so genuinely and geniusly, but at the same time be such a garbage human being makes him such an intriguing figure to me. Especially because I feel that people are less interested in Morrissey the person, and they are more interested in Morrissey the feeling, what he represents. Like the perverted form of pop he crafted back in the 80s, along with the messages presented that spoke volumes to millions, me included. And he's had no shame over the years in voicing even the most radical of his opinions. Which, you know, freedom of speech, but also fuck you. But as time has gone on, Morrissey, especially nowadays, has basically lost everything that has made him charming at this point. Like, he's a crooner with no charisma. It's like listening to Nat King Cole, but without any of the charm and quirkiness that makes him so special. And with all the controversy he's gotten into, whether it be the For Britain thing, or his views on Islamics, or even the veganism thing. And I know, some fans may turn a blind eye because it's Morrissey, but for normal people, I mean, these cases aren't exactly something you're gonna walk away from. And over his last few albums, I feel that the heat he's taken from these controversies have manifested musically over the past few albums. Especially here. The entirety of this record is just essentially Maz just saying these things because it's what he's thinking. It feels like, God, how do I even call it? For example, we have the title track, which is essentially We Live in the Society. It's really eye-roll worthy lyrically, at best, and at worst is a terrible justification for his actions. Or the track Knockabout World, which is one of the better tracks here, one of my personal favorites, stating how society targets you, beating you to a pulp, and will rid of you. But aside from Maz cosplaying as a Joker on this album, Maz as a lyricist on this, it just really, God, it just either hits or it misses. You have tracks like Darling, I Hug a Pillow, which is just, I don't need to hear about his sex life. The verses are borderline stalkerish and just make me want to take a cold, long shower. There were many times where I could not keep a straight face solely because of what Maz was saying, whether they just be so self-serious, so lacking of self-awareness, or laughably wrong. And I think the biggest offender of that is the title track, where Maz essentially justifies his radical-ass views. Now, I don't like being political, but I think in any case where you have to justify being a bigot, you really have to try to win me over. And with lyrics that are just so pretentious, I think you've already lost me at that. But then, there are other times where I think that as a lyricist, Morrissey is really good. My Hurling days are done. The final track. I think the clever wordplay and the allusion to Shakespeare, combined with the fact that Maz knows that his middle-aged days are way behind him, I think it serves as a very good and cinematic ending, relatively of course. And of course there are other ideals worked in here like anti-poaching, identity, and suicide. But even if you take an ideal that I agree with, like anti-poaching is terrible, obviously, that doesn't mean I'm going to like the song itself, because Maz has had a pretty consistent track record of presenting these issues with a really bitter tone. If it's sour to him, it's presented sour to me, it's gross, it's yucky, get it away from me. I do not want to hear a bitter boomer read emo high school poetry about poaching. Even though I agree that poaching is terrible, if it's presented in a way that's bitter, it just fails as a song to me. Musically, this album is weird, really weird. There are elements of synth and disco, mariachi music for some reason. It's a really bold sound overall, especially for Moz. But does that mean it's good? It gives me a migraine. I'll just say that. When it comes to performance on this album, there's a kind of similar delivery across every track, which kind of makes every song feel like kind of a drag, which is unfortunate. Instrumentally, this album is consistent, I'll give it that, even if the instrumental palette isn't exactly my cup of tea. I mean, Bobby Don't You Think They Know features Thelma Houston of all people. I mean, her performance is really over-exaggerated, but still impressive. I liked it a lot. While Morrissey is just kind of on this track. And there's also this horn freakout at the very end that is really, really poorly mixed. Like, it sounds deafened as hell. The synths on this track too hit you like a semi-auto truck. They just have this nice visceral thud to them, as do a lot of other synth-driven tracks. And, oh my god, there's one song called Secret of Music. It is so weird. I get what he was going for, like a slow, kind of sensual track, but it has a lot of ambient noises littered throughout the entirety of the song that I can only describe as Subnautica type ambience. I'm not making that up. Moz himself barely even sings throughout the entirety of the track, and when he does, it's about talking about musical instruments, like they're people. The song feels like a drug trip. I would say that Secret of Music is the only outlier in the track list. Like, sonically, it does not fit, like, the musical ethos of the entire album. But I will say that it was interesting, even if it let me be a little confused and maybe hating it a bit. As far as other tracks are concerned, the title track, even if I do not like it, it has this really cute little marching quality to it. And for whatever reason, Darling features a mariachi band, which I guess to appeal to the gigantic fan base in Mexico, it makes sense. Outside of that, Darling itself is really kind of bland, musically speaking. What else can I say? Knockabout World is a catchy, nice pop tune, I guess. My Hurling days are done. It's cinematic and nice. It's a nice ending. But everything aside from that, I don't have any strong feelings towards them. I either don't have something to say about one particular song because they just don't do anything for me, or I just don't like them in general. That's another reason. Listening to this album was really weird for me because if you look at the album objectively, it's nothing special, it's not bad either. It's a bold sound, but in general it's a tired sound that had its time in the limelight already. There are songs that just do not have anything special to say about them. There are songs that I think are simply annoying lyrically or musically. But I think what bugs me the most about this record, aside from the bland handful of songs, I think the biggest issue with this is that it makes me want to listen to a better record. When it comes to substance, there's not a lot for me to be entertained by. I don't think I loved a single song. I appreciated some of them. I even liked some of them. But I don't know, man. I'd rather be listening to Your Arsenal or Hatful of Hollow. I mean, I'm sorry, that's the truth. Moz has lost all of his charm for me to be interested anymore. And as he gets older, I think that he is going to be still incredibly mediocre throughout the entirety of his career, or he just fucking dies like JPEG Mafia said. It's really unfortunate for me to see one of my favorite pop stars, who was so genius and so goddamn, his music was irresistible, just to see him like fall from grace, it's really disheartening for me to see. And I think that's the fate for literally any pop star. So subscribe or don't. It doesn't matter. We're all gonna die either way. And make sure you take care of yourself, because self-love is really lacking these days. Take care of yourselves.